Hello, welcome back to Inside the Data on Inside the Birds. I'm Geoff Mosher, and of course, when we're talking about data and analytics and metrics, that means we got our man, Sam Finkel, our analytics expert, with us for yet another mailbag. And the really cool thing is we've had several questions submitted to us, so please continue to submit your questions to insidethebirds@gmail.com, direct them to Sam, and be as analytically specific as possible. Which brings us, Sam, to the two questions we're going to ask. We've had them in the queue, as they say, for quite a bit here. They required a lot of number crunching on your part, and they also required you and I to pick apart the parts of the question that are actually, answerable through data and analysis and all the work that you put in. So I'm very excited to go into both of these questions. I think our listeners are going to really appreciate. I know they will, the work that you put in to get the detail on both of these questions. And of course, for those who are watching at home, when we do get into the visual element of it, I'll share the screen, blow it up for our YouTube watchers. And Sam, for those who are listening, we'll make sure you do your best to be ear pleasing along with eye pleasing. Well, I've always been told I have a face for podcasts anyway, so I have a voice for podcasts. So we like to please the ears more than the eyes.
Definitely. I wouldn't agree with that, Geoff. I don't.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's get right into our first question that you and I have kind of been discussing behind the scenes on how we would attack this for a little while. And what I'll do, Sam, is read the question. And we both agreed that some of this is just answerable with context that I can give. And then the meat and potatoes, the analytic stuff, I'll throw to you. So bear with us. It's a little bit of a long-winded question. We usually give the question asker. I forget who the name of the person. Do you remember the name, just so we can give this guy some props? Yeah. Or it's okay if you don't have it on you.
I thought I added it, but I must have deleted it when I deleted some of the other stuff.
No worries. I just want to make sure that this person.
How about this? When you read it at the end, I'll say who it is. I'll find it while you're reading it.
All right. I might even be able to find it faster than you, though.
Oh, look at that.
The wonderful thing about it's Stephen Y, by the way. See how fast I got that?
Stephen, yeah, you beat me by a mile.
Yeah, you know this as an analytics person. A Google search is the fastest way to anything, right? A Gmail search.
100%.
All right. So again, please send your questions to insidethebirds@gmail.com and direct them to Sam, and we'll continue to do this for as long as we can. So this question came from Steve. It was a long-winded one. And I'm going to paraphrase for people. He basically said he's been listening to discussions about getting more production out of JordanDavis as if sacks are the only thing that matters. And then he writes, maybe it does for dollars. Well, no, it's not the only thing that matters. But yes, that the interior and edge linemen who get the most pressures and sacks, sure, they get the most money. And Sam, you know this, when the Eagles traded up to draft JordanDavis that high, I think 14th overall, even Howie Roseman said this at the press conference, you need to develop into a 3-down lineman. So when it's about your draft status and what's expected from you. And to be a 3-down lineman, you do have to be a part of the 4-man rush, which JordanDavis has not been a part of. So Stephen continues to say, how can JordanDavis get more sacks if he's only playing on the rundowns, which is a great question. And then he says, when JordanDavis is in a 5-man front, who are the other linemen? Is he playing nose tackle? What technique he's playing? And I can answer that as yes. JordanDavis mostly plays in a 5-man front. It's mostly on first and second down when the other team's going to run. And when he's in the 5-man front, he is in the position called the zero technique, or also known as the nose shade, which is either directly over the center or slightly over the center. The bottom line, he's the middle guy out of 5. Now, last year, the two guys that flanked him were Jalen Carter and Milton Williams. And then you had your two edge guys. Could be Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, whoever, right? Josh Sweat. This year, we're looking at Moro Ojomo taking that Milton Williams spot. So when they want to stop the run and they're in their base 5-man front, the nickel corner, which is Cooper DeJean, comes off the field. JordanDavis is on the field, and it's JordanDavis surrounded by Jalen Carter on one side, Moro Ojomo on the other, and then your two outside linebacker / edge rushers as your 5-man front. When they get into pass defense and they think the opponents are going to pass, JordanDavis comes off, Cooper DeJean comes in. And what the numbers showed last year, Sam, is that Cooper DeJean was in on 80% of the snaps when he first started week 6 to the end of the year, right? So clearly what we know about Vic Fangio, Sam, right, is that he's playing mostly nickel defense, and Jordan Davis is not a part of it because he's not in the 4-man rush. Anything to add to that?
No, I totally think that's a great synopsis of his role. The only other thing that I might add is we still don't know exactly how DeJean's going to play when he's not in that nickel role. That is subject to change, and I'm sure you have. I mean, I know you've talked about it in the past, but I just thought it'd be relevant to bring up here right now.
Right. So there is an opportunity. Sam is pointing this out, and it's a really good point. This year, that Cooper DeJean and Jordan Davis would be on the field in the same defense. It would still be base. There would be no nickel back or slot corner, but Cooper DeJean would play on the outside opposite Quinyon Mitchell. All right. Or because Vic Fangio is just throwing all these curves at us, or he might be playing safety next to either Drew Makuba or Reed Blankenship, and then you have your normal 2 outside corners. But the point is that would only happen in a base look with no slot corner. Once they go back to nickel, the plan for now is to have Cooper DeJean as the nickel back, and then somebody else goes to the outside corner or somebody else goes to that safety spot. So, Sam, here's where you come in, because Steven asks, I would love to see analytics from last year showing the number of first downs that Jordan Davis played and the number of second downs, the number of downs when Davis and Cooper DeJean were both on the field, which we just said was very limited. And was Jordan Davis in on any goal line plays? Well, yes, because that's run defense, and he's a big, huge man, and they stick him in a lot in run on goal line.
Crazy enough, only 11 times on goal line.
Really? Is it only out of how many? Do you have how many times they were in goal line?
No, but he had 430 snaps on the year, and 11 of them were goal line. I was a little surprised.
Wow, that's really interesting. I wonder how many of those goal line were not first and goal, like because they would be in nickel in those situations. Then,
yeah,
if he was in goal line, that's pretty interesting. So look, that's why we have you here. So I'm going to let you get to the root of the question, which is the analytics of him when he was on the field last year, and then also in the spirit of the question, did he show any improvement last year in his limited snaps to be, I don't know, I guess to maybe part of the 4-man rush this year? So take it away.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing the screen? I can.
I will do it right now. Yes.
Thank you.
And here we go.
So I'm going to be honest. We're going to be taking listeners and viewers through a little bit of a journey through this question. And
fun.
Just because there was a lot to do with these. So it's a little bit, we're going to be doing a little storytelling. We're going to go all over the place. So this first chart, this first table right here is the regular and postseason statistics for Jordan Davis in the 2024-2025 year. Yep. So it goes through every game, and it says how many snaps he played per game. That RD, which is the next one after snaps, is run defense snaps. And then the next one is pass rush snaps. And what's interesting is if you look at the bottom, he had 212 run defense snaps, and 217 pass defense. And what's interesting is if you look at those numbers, 212 plus 217 does not equal 430. It equals 429.
Right.
And so I had to get to the bottom of that. And you know what it was? During the Cincinnati game, there was one snap that he was accounted for in pass coverage.
Oh my God.
One snap. That's where
they dropped him back. I probably saw it watching tape and fell off my chair.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. That is why that doesn't add up. But it is very interesting that he had one pass coverage snap.
You're going to force me to go back onto the All-22 and find that snap and see what he did. I wonder if he accidentally dropped in the
It's totally possible. So all this was generated by NFL Next Gen Stats. And so that's where these are sourced from. One of the things I actually had the pleasure of interviewing Kurt Warner this week, and I just wanted to say that really quickly. And one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me, and it's actually changed the approach I do in Inside the Data, is he told me you're to be credible, you need to watch the data, watch the stats before you look at the data. So I watched a lot of Jordan Davis for this, just to be credible and have the stats should back up what you see on tape. And I think it does to a good extent. And that's the only reason I bring that up now, because that's kind of what I did with the process of this question.
Okay.
So then if you look, basically you'll see in the next chart a better visual of how his breakdown. But basically, we'll look at the aggregate stats. 33 tackles on the year, 3 sacks, 7 quarterback pressures, time to sack of 4.43, time to pressure of 2.8, and a get off of 1.18. Again, get off is just how fast you cross the line of scrimmage. A good interior defensive lineman is going to be at 1 second. So he's slower than it's still average where he's at, but it's nothing special.
Right.
Time to sack for interior defensive line. Usually at that point, it's a coverage sack at like over 4.2, 4.3. It's a coverage sack at that point. Not always, not necessarily. I watched some of the film, like the 4.61 in the conference championship against Jaden Daniels. That was not a coverage sack. He beat them. I watched that. Just Jaden Daniels extended the play and just ran back. That's why I said it's not always, but generally that's what you see when you see something like that.
Okay. How about the one from the Super Bowl at 4.57?
That one was more.
JordanDavis had a sack in the Super Bowl. How did I forget that? But
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that one. So
it had to be a coverage.
Mahomes stepped up into the pocket. It was like basically it was kind of a coverage sack, I'd say. I mean, there were guys a little bit open, especially on the the flat. But and I think Mahomes was trying to step up to make the play into the flat. But JordanDavis made the sack, and that one was more of a coverage sack, I think. Then I thought he dominated against Washington on the sack that he had versus the one he had against Kansas City.
So we might as well did you watch the New Orleans one where he had 3.81 time to sack?
I did watch that one. I don't remember. I remember because the 3.81. You know what? I did see that one. He destroyed the center. He destroyed the center. I remember.
If I remember correctly, Ruiz was hurt. They had their guard was hurt. They had their third string center in that game.
Yeah, he absolutely destroyed him. I remember that. And Carr didn't stand a chance.
Right. I think it was McCoy. McCoy was the guard who was also hurt. I think Ruiz and McCoy were also hurt. I forget the name of the guy.
Sure.
But go ahead. So what is the league average for an interior lineman on time to sack? Just if you have that. I don't know.
I don't have that, but if I had to guess for interior defensive linemen, it would be closer to 3.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that would be usually 3 is where, like, if the quarterback doesn't get rid of the ball, typically it's bad luck unless you can extend the play.
Got it.
So I would say it's probably around that.
All right. Good stuff. What I want to clarify, because we have 212 rush defense snaps and 217 pass defense snaps, which you noted was almost 50-50. And that might give the impression that we're wrong, that he's on the field for pass rush as much as he is for run defense. But I'm guessing these are not down in distance. This is just whether the play was a run or happened to be a pass, because teams sometimes pass when you think they're going to run quite a bit. You know what I'm saying?
So we'll get into that 100%. You'll see in some of the other charts and tables that I have that it'll become more obvious. In most of the situations he was in, there were like typical, first and long, second and long situations. And that's typically where you'd see him play. And there's a good chance you run on either one of those downs.
Right.
So,
okay. So we'll get into the next chart.
Yes, please.
All right. Well, there are 2 of them here, so I'll blow that up. Hopefully everybody can see really well. I tried to get both on the same screen. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to say for the first one, the blue line is his snap count. The red line is his tackles, and the yellow line is his pressures. And as you can see, it's a volume statistic, right? The more snaps you have, the more you have, and the more, actual statistics you get, especially at defensive line. So you can see every time his snap count went higher, his tackles and pressures, went higher. What I think is particularly interesting is his highest tackle and pressure count tend to come even when he had a lower. It's really that Giants game where he had 5 tackles that you really see. And then the conference championship and the Super Bowl. And again, on this axis, the actual week numbers do not correlate with the numbers. That's actually like the numbers of games.
Right.
So, because they had a bye week 4. So game 4 would be game 5 in that instance. You know what I mean?
So week 5's a little bit of an outlier, right? Or game 5, because he
Yeah.
had the most number of snaps, but that week he seemed to have his fewest tackles, if I'm correct on that, or one of his fewest tackles.
Right. Exactly.
But oddly enough, like you're saying, it looks like week 7 here he had a pretty decent amount of tackles and not nearly as many snaps.
Correct.
And pressures, same thing. Yeah.
And that's what I think is kind of the theme with JordanDavis and that I'd like to get into is
Mhm.
they found a way to optimize his usage, right? So they were
Mhm.
getting their bang for their buck without putting him on the field as much. And I
Sure.
think that's kind of the conclusion I kind of came to when I was doing this research, especially because he just looked better as the season went on. I think from a film perspective, he looked better, and maybe just because he wasn't getting as winded or his endurance might have improved, but also he just didn't play as much.
Right. And
Uh,
is this the Washington game here, week like 17 or 18, where the pressure or no, that's the tackles up. I'm sorry. It's just weird because from the pressure in 15 to 20 is kind of low, right? And that's when the coaches said that they felt they saw more from him.
yeah, it definitely is, but he was. I thought he played pretty well.
Mhm.
Even though didn't record his pressures. Remember, he only had 7 quarterback pressures on the year, which is not good.
Right. Right.
Like that's not good, even for an interior. You're gonna have less pressures at an interior defensive line, but 7's not good. But if you
Right.
look at a guy, I mean, his highest snap count was that dreadful Tampa Bay game at 37. Like
Mhm.
he never got higher than 30 another time in the year.
Right.
So
And
I mean,
his lowest looks like it was probably 12, and that might have been week 7 against, was that Jacksonville? Like, I'm
so
not
he was 11 against the Giants in week 7. That
right,
was that
right.
was his lowest. But he was also 12 in the wild card game and 12 in the Super Bowl.
Mm,
But he made the
interesting.
most of those snaps. So I think that's like what I was saying.
Yeah,
In the playoffs, he was 12, 17, 13, and 12.
right.
Right.
I
Yeah,
like this line graph. I think it's good, but it also illustrates the complexity of it because he just didn't have that many pressures to really be able to make good compare, like week to week to week to week comparison, Like not like
sure.
an edge rusher who might have 5 or 6 one week and then 2 or 3 the next.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that.
All right. So let's go to this. Unless you had more, I was going to go to this next
No,
chart.
let's go to
Okay.
the next chart. We're good.
All right. What do we have here?
Yeah, so these are just more statistics, but based on his by down, right? So if you look at where his actual usage was, he had 243 of his snaps on first down and 149 on second down. When you
Mm,
get to third and fourth, he had 38 between third and fourth down combined.
wow.
So I think that goes to kind of what we were saying before, that he really was used in certain. And again, we'll break this down into situation after this.
Right.
But if you look at just purely by down usage, he was used in first and second down. That's really where he was used.
Right. So this really answers the first part of the question. I mean, I just did a quick math. It looks like 88% of his snaps were on first and second down. That's how he was used. That's what they felt was best for him. So for Steven's question, how did they use him? And how could he get more pressures if he's not used in pressure situations? Well, this chart kind of validates the question about going forward because he really did not get that many opportunities. 38 total snaps out of 430 total. 38 snaps on third and fourth down out of 430 total snaps is just a small sample size.
And you kind of stole the thunder of the next chart, but I think it illustrates your point even better. Why don't you go to that one really quick and you can kind of see
I
it.
did want you to because I think the
Sure.
time per down, time to sack, and time to pressure and get off are interesting enough to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're the same as what you saw before because he only got sacks on first and second down. He didn't get any
Right,
sacks on third and fourth. But the
right.
delineation between first and second down is certainly interesting, and we can spend a second to talk about it. He pressured faster on second down, but he sacked faster on first down. And
Yeah,
again, you're talking about 3 sacks, 2 and 1,
right.
and 6 pressures, 6 to 1. So that 4.61 on second down, I believe was that the Mahomes one? No, that was the Jaden Daniels one. The 4.61 was the second one. Was Jaden Daniels. So you're talking about one sack that he dominated on that one, and it was one where it probably should have been faster. If it wasn't Jaden Daniels, it probably would have been faster. So it's kind of unfair to kind of grade him just based on this, because it's the sample size is just so low.
Right.
But
so I would even take time to sack out of it because of having again, only 3. And then they came against some elusive guys who tend to run around, especially Jaden Daniels and Mahomes. So I think time to pressure in this chart is somewhat encouraging, right? Because on second down, which is your more likelier passing down compared to first, his time to pressure and his get off were better, from 2.9 to 2.2 and 125 to 108. Is that fair?
Sort of. Again, it's 6 pressures to 1 pressure, right? So
that's true.
That's the only reason I say sort of. I mean, listen, I am certainly an optimist, but I also think we need to be realistic in this, and just mention the sample size is an issue here, right? We can project it as much as we want, and I think there's validity in projecting it based on what these numbers say. However, anytime you do project based on limited information, it hurts the accuracy of it. That's all.
How about the get off? Is the time on the get off for per snap or per pressure?
It's per snap. So
okay,
that is pretty accurate.
That's a little bit more encouraging then, because this is a bigger sample size then.
Absolutely. I mean, that sample size is within a valid number, right? It's 243 and 149. So you feel pretty good with that number, at least, being descriptive of that you can project off of. I feel very comfortable projecting off of that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. I love this, bro. This was an excellent breakdown.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think it really sets the table for your next few charts here. So why don't we go to the next chart, which is a pie chart for those who can't see, that shows JordanDavis's snaps by the down. It really is, again, I think this visual just shows you the complexity that we're talking about, because as you'll talk about in a second, there's a really, really, really big piece of this pie that shows he played on first down a lot.
Right. And I mean, look, over 90% of the is in first and second down. Like that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, right? I thought seeing it for the people that are watching it would help visual. I just want different visualization just to understand it. That's all.
Yeah. If you're looking at this pie chart in the context of the discussion of how to evaluate JordanDavis's pass rush snaps, you're looking at this yellow and tiny green sliver as your sample size. Okay. So let that sink in for a second, that this is what you have to judge him on. If it were to look like a pie, it's not very much.
Exactly.
All right. So snaps by situation, which I think tells a pretty good story here too. And boom, I got some master craftsmanship here.
You're doing great.
Charts. Thank you.
Honestly,
go ahead. This is so much snaps by situation.
So all I'll say on this is I kept going back and forth on if I should separate it into first down, just first down, or if I should delineate based on first and short, first and medium, first and long. And I split it up just because, there are situations like goal line situations, or if there's a penalty where you're not going to be exactly first and 10, right? And it sounds so silly to say, but I wanted this to be as descriptive as possible, so that's why I made that decision.
I think it's awesome. I think it's better to do it this way, because football, especially the Eagles, right? Think about how situational they are. Sure. Think about how they're a 4-down offense and how hard that makes them to defend. So to have the actual breakdowns in this way, I think really illustrates more what we're looking at when JordanDavis is on the field and when he's on the field.
Yeah. And that being said, it really kind of showcases where that second down stats are coming from, right? So first down, obviously we see, I mean, he's first and 10 most of the time. Yep. However, what you're seeing on second down is they didn't use him, surprisingly, on second and short. And you know what? That makes sense, because the NFL likes to pass on second and short. I mean, that's a great opportunity to do so. But they like to run on second and medium and second and long. And so that's where he was utilized. But you know where else he was utilized the most? Third and short. Because guess what? Teams like to run there.
Yep.
So
100%. It's funny. It's long when it's first down and sometimes second, and then short when it's second and third. Yeah, Yeah, and then again, like if you want to judge a guy on his pass rush, well, look, he's on the field 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. It's the lowest of the bars. 4th and 1 and 2 is also a potential rundown. So you can understand why that's quarterback sneak down. So you can understand why he's in there for that. But this is how he was used, and it's almost like there's so many different ways and charts, but it all comes back to the same thing, that they did not believe he was among their 4 best pass rushers. So when it was time to put the 4 best pass rushers on the field, JordanDavis wasn't there.
And I think the tape shows that too. I mean, he wasn't one of the 4 best pass rushers. So
Correct. By the way, it's tough to be one of the 4 best pass rushers on the Eagles when you have Josh Sweat, and when you have Brandon Graham, when you have Jalen Carter, and when you had Milton Williams. I mean, one guy's making $26 million, the other guy's probably the best defensive tackle in the league, and the edge rusher just went to Arizona. I forgot how much he made, like $20 million in Arizona.
yeah, he made a lot.
Yeah, so like it's not really easy, but again, the spirit of the question is they drafted this guy to do it, so we've got to keep analyzing it.
Yeah, and honestly, okay, so this chart right here that we're looking at, I honestly love it, but I don't think it does it justice until we go to the overlay. I tried something new this time.
Okay.
And I think I want to save it. I think we go past this chart and just show the overlay later.
Oh, all right. So do you want me to go hurry up to this chart then?
Yeah, let's do it, because I think people will enjoy it. Listen, this is a little experimental for us, right? Because this is the first time I've tried something like this, and I'll explain it when we get to it. We'll go over this table first, and then we'll get right into the chart. I just think people will enjoy it. That's all.
Sounds good. I like a little tease anyway. Some people saw that and probably jump in, but we'll bypass that for the moment.
Love it. So again, this is just what you're seeing, right? I mean, this is what we talked about, but it's just more of a breakdown, right? So if you look, that first and short and medium is 9 snaps, right? And then if you look at the 1st and 10 range, it's 233 snaps. And then you see the 2nd and medium 53, 2nd and long 76, 3rd and short 25, right? So that's kind of, you feel pretty good about where he is at. And if you look at some of the statistics, they're kind of on par, right? So if you look at the tackles, he's 15 for 1st and long, and then he for 2nd and medium and 2nd and long, he's 7 and 7, right? So it kind of tracks. And the sacks, he got 2 of his sacks on 1st down and the 1 on 2nd and long. And then he got 6 pressures on 1st and 10, and his other pressure was on 2nd and long. So
look, this is a great table, because if you're into math, and even if you're not really good at math, but you're somewhat decent, we all know in the NFL, 3rd and long is the money down, as the person put in their question. I guess that's where the money is made. It is. Money is made on 3rd down, and on 3rd and long, all year long, this man played 3 snaps, but I guess he dropped back in one of them. So he rushed the passer twice all year long on 3rd and long. Okay, that's all you need to know. And really 7 times if you go from 3rd and medium and 3rd and long out of 430 snaps. So kind of hard to show any chops as an improved pass. And that's why I do think that it was Vic Fangio who said he saw it more in practice than in the game, because obviously in practice you're out there in a bunch of different scenarios. In the game, again, you're limited because they have that rotation that they already had. So I think that's why Vic made it a point, Sam, to say that what he really saw from JordanDavis as an improved pass rusher came first in practice, and then you started to see it a little bit more by the end of the year in the postseason.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the moment everyone's been waiting for. Go to the next chart.
Overlay. Oh, look at these beautiful shaded boxes and overlays. I love it.
A little bit of an experiment. I'm sure I can make it a little fancier in the future, because I literally just took the 2 charts, sized them the same, and overlaid them. But this is just the first chart where you see that those green bars are his snap count. And then if you look, the blue line is tackles and the red is pressure, just so you can see by situation where his statistics go from a visual perspective.
Yes. Yep.
And I just think people would enjoy this. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you like this. Hopefully we can do more of these.
Mhm.
Because I think it shows, a three-dimensional analysis, right? Because
Right.
you can see where the stats actually came in.
Right. Right. So you see that he played a decent number of snaps here on 1st and 7 and long, which we already know. He played a lot of 1st and 10, but that also this shows that he had a decent amount of obviously tackles because that's at the same point, but pressures. His pressures were up on 1st and 7. So there were times. Here's what I make of this, and you tell me what you think. There were times on 1st and 10 that the Eagles were in a run defense look, base packaging him out there, but the offense passed, and Davis did a decent job on those times of getting some pressures.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a very fair assessment.
Now there are some other games where the red line doesn't move with the blue line, and that also shows his inconsistency, right? This or not games, I should say situations. So second and let's break down one of them. Second and I guess say between 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 6, you see a pretty big spike in his tackles, although not in snaps. That's kind of strange, but not pressures. So at least he was tackling, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what's even more interesting with that, so that we're talking about the second and medium, right? Out of
Mm-hmm.
those second and medium, 16 of them were passes.
Mm.
So I think that kind of explains it, right? 37 of them were runs. So I think that's part of the reason why the chart went that way.
Sure. Sure. This was excellent work. What anything else that you're making out of this chart?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing. I think that it's interesting. Like I said, it's volume statistics, right? Like you'll
Mm-hmm.
see the peaks kind of coincide with where he got the most snaps, and that's just naturally how this is going to occur. But it's a little bit situationally dependent on what kind of reps he was seeing. When he was seeing pass reps, hope the pressures kind of went up. When he was seeing run snaps, the tackles went up. It just kind of flows that way.
I'm going to stop sharing at the moment and just kind of come back and have a wrap up conversation with you.
Sure.
I think this is all a lot of really good data that at the end of the day still leaves the second part of the question, and not your fault, but just that's sports for you unanswered in that we don't know. We don't know what JordanDavis will look like this year. We don't know if he will be able to get more opportunities to rush the passer. I mean, you think he might because they're saying it and because there's some uncertainty. Next to Jalen Carter now with Moro Ajomo stepping into the role. Ty Robinson's a rookie. And, if one of those two guys gets hurt or doesn't live up to what they want, or if just JordanDavis is beasting, he may get an opportunity to get in there. And that's kind of, I take from your chart that if you gave him some more opportunities, naturally you might see a better pass rush. But I think the question is, would you see an elite one and or an above average one? And to me, Sam, that would be the remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, there were a lot of reps he was winning, and I thought he was winning well, but there were just as many reps that I watched where he just got destroyed at the line. Like he just stood there. I mean, he is a monster of a man. It's hard to move him, but
Mm-hmm.
he definitely lost some reps. He's pretty good, especially against the run at reading. I felt, which is again his strength is definitely against the run. It's again that pass situation, and I feel like he gets himself into some trouble sometimes in those, and just because he didn't get a high volume of them, it makes it difficult to assess. That's all.
There you go. All right, and then listen, I think it's going to be a fun storyline this year for training camp in the season on how he does if he gets pass rushing roles. All right, well, that was a lot of charts, a lot of data. I hope JordanDavis himself would appreciate how much effort Sam put in to going inside his pass rush versus rundown statistics. And like we say, the rest is up to JordanDavis to prove if he's worthy of more pass rush snaps. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Data. For Sam Finkel, I'm Geoff Mosher. We'll catch you on the next one.